When Nissan introduced the very first Murano back in 2003, it became an instant hit, and that's because it was a radical departure from all the other SUVs and crossovers at that time. In fact, the Murano became the poster child for what a mid-size crossover should look like. Now, fast forward 16 years later, the landscape is completely different and competition is fierce. But is a Nissan Murano still competitive today? And that's what I'm here to find out. So in this review, I'm going to show you the ins and outs, find out how the Murano drives on the roads, tell you the good and bad, and finally conclude by ranking this among its peers so you guys could decide if this is the right crossover SUV for you. Stay tuned.
Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to my friends at Bill K Nissan, which made this video possible. So if you're in the market for a brand new or used Nissan, definitely check out this dealership. Their information is in the description below. Murano has always had this funky, bubbly look, and it's the same for this generation. However, after the mid-cycle refresh back in 2019, this Murano now looks a bit more stylish and modern. Starting with the front, the headlights are completely LED. That includes low and high beam, turn signal, daytime running lights, and even fog lights. The V-Motion grille is now larger, giving more presence. The bottom bumper has a nice chrome bar, adding some layering. As for the side, the funky design still carries through. However, the amazing looking metallic red paint and the contrast really makes the Murano pop. The chrome window surrounds matches the huge chrome trim underneath the door, as well as the chrome door handles. And those 20-inch gunmetal alloy wheels also looks fantastic. Now the backside of the Murano is a bit plain with a lot of unpainted moldings on the bottom bumper. However, you do get a nice spoiler on top, a couple funky looking smoke taillights that pop out, and a set of chrome exhaust tips. Now, as for the trunk, you get a power liftgate and hands-free opening. Usually it's tricky, but this one worked on the very first try. Inside, you see a nice privacy cover that simply slides out to hide your belongings, and if you don't want it, simply slide it back. There is a 12V outlet that's on the side, as you can see here, and there are two handles on each side that folds down the second row. Underneath, you do have a spare tire and tools. For those of you guys that are curious, there are 32 cubic feet of room for storage, and if you fold down the second row, it increases to 67 cubic feet of room.
Once you get in the second row, you may never want to leave because it is spacious, it's comfortable, and it has all the amenities you're looking for. Starting with the space, there is an enormous amount of space back in the second row. I'm 5'10", and take a look, there's a good 6 to 8 inches of legroom left, and same thing with headroom, there's plenty of it, and it's very wide as well. Now, in terms of comforts, these seats are absolutely amazing. Not only do they look great, they have these beautiful diamond stitching on them. It looks absolutely amazing, but they also feel very good. I don't know what Nissan did, but it almost seems like there's a layer of memory foam on top. That feeling when you first sit down, you kind of sink in for like a ½ inch, and then the seat kind of like holds you in. Nissan is known for zero gravity seats, so whatever they did, whatever magic they did, it is very, very comfortable. And this is the second row. This is not even the front seats. So besides the space and the comfort, all the amenities, you get a USB port, you get a USB-C port, you get heated seats back here, and a pair of vents, and of course cup holders. There's 4 of them, one in each door panel and one in the center armrest. Now that I'm front, take a look, starting from the door panel to the dash with the vents, the infotainment in the middle, and how it carries through the center console here, and of course the gauge cluster and the steering wheel. Now in terms of the cabin, it does look quite nice, although it looks a little dated, especially when you compare it to some of the new offerings from Nissan, such as the new Altima, which the dash layout was completely redesigned, refreshed, and it looks amazing. So although the cabin in here doesn't look bad, it does look a bit dated. Now starting with the infotainment system, the GUI, the graphical interface, looks a bit dated, but it is fairly responsive, and if you didn't like using this, you could use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which comes on this Nissan Murano. Now, if you press these buttons, they're pretty quick. And also here, camera button, this is where you get a 360 view. When you go reverse, it'll show you what's behind you. Right now, it's showing what's ahead of me, in fact, and also what's around this Murano. Now, if you move on, now moving on to the bottom, climate control. This is pretty self-explanatory. You have two large knobs, dual climate setup, the fan control, and some vents and defroster buttons. Now moving down here, you do see another USB-C port, which is nice, and a USB 12V outlet, start-stop over here, and a traditional shifter. Feels pretty good, and there's nothing you have to relearn. Over here, you have cooled and heated seats, 3 levels, just depends on what you're looking for, and simply just turn it. And you get, I don't know, just space for your phone, and here 2 large cup holders. Now, look at the center armrest. It's nice and wide. It's big. This leather actually feels really nice. It's wide enough so both the driver and passenger could put their arm on here and still would not hit each other. Take a look. Now, once you open it, man, there's many different layers. A layer for your change, another layer for maybe more change, a 12V outlet here, and just a whole bunch of space down the middle. So moving on to gauge cluster, you got a large 7-inch screen in the middle where you could see a whole bunch of stuff, and then you got a tach and miles per hour. Those are analog, but right now it shows you the compass, and of course you can see the speed limit and all that good stuff. But you can scroll through, take a look at how many menu options there are. There is, let's start with home, and then there's music, navigation, information, or trip computer, fuel economy. This is all the driving aids, speed limit sign, tire pressure warning, and settings. So there's definitely a lot that you could scroll through. Everything I showed you on the screen is controlled here. One thing that's a little bit confusing is when you're using this to scroll through the different menu options, say you want to look at something, you want to press down, you don't press down on here, you actually press this OK, and then if you want to scroll up and down, you use this. So just keep that in mind. This is source for your radio and so forth, volume, and over here this is for the intelligent cruise control. One thing to note, and it's very strange, the Pro Pilot Assist function, where it's kind of semi-autonomous driving, that is not available on the Murano for whatever reason.
But this Murano does have Safety Shield 360, which includes auto braking forwards and backwards, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot warning, lane departure warning, and also high beam assist.
Now over here, of course, for the tailgate, heated steering wheel, traction control on and off, and this is various safety features. As you can see, when you press it, it turns on. So that lane keep system, it turns that on for you. So this is kind of like activation or deactivation of your safety features. Memory seats over here, this is pretty standard. Over here you got your home link setup for your garage doors. Over here is pretty standard. And take a look at this large panoramic sunroof, which opens up nearly to the back. Take a look at that. It lets so much light in. Definitely a good feature to have. So I'm behind the wheel. Let's go for a drive and see how this Murano handles the roads. One thing you got to get used to with Nissan navigation systems is even if you don't input a destination, it will give you warnings that it thinks you need to know, like a toll booth is coming up, or there's a tornado 10 miles away. So you do have to get used to that, or you could turn it off, which I just did. So just something to be aware of, even with no destination inputted. Now, one thing that's deceiving about a Murano is somehow because of the way it's shaped, how it's very bubbly, round, a little funky, it doesn't look that big from the outside, but it's actually pretty big on the inside. If you look at the dimensions, it's very, very comparable to, say, a Toyota Highlander, which has 3 rows of seats, which this Murano does not have. But if you look at the overall length, the width, the height, it's very comparable. So once you get inside, the first thing you're impressed with is the amount of space that you get. First impression is, it's a very comfortable ride, as you would expect it. Now, this is the Platinum Edition, so it has pretty much all the bells and whistles that Nissan has. But overall, this is a nice, smooth ride. I don't know how Nissan did it. There's like a layer of cushion that's right on top. Kind of like memory foam, but not. I know it's not memory foam, but when you sit on it, you kind of like sit into the seat for like a ½ inch. Like you just kind of like smush down, and it's a really nice, comfortable feel. And then the seat holds you in. So it's a really weird sensation. I haven't sat in another seat that felt like this, because I've sit in a lot of SUVs, you know, with sports seats or sporty seats where they hold you in, but they don't have the comfort that this seat offers. It's really, really amazing. Let's see how this Murano does 0 to 60. Not bad, not bad. About average, I would say. This is comparable to the other mid-size SUVs I've tested. This is utilizing the tried and true 3.5 liter engine that Nissan have been using for a long time, 260 horsepower, about 240 pound-feet of torque. Now it's mated to a CVT transmission, but the CVT is made to simulate shifting. So while you're going up, it will shift for you, although it's a CVT transmission. Now, the visibility, I gotta say, is amazing. It's really, really good. Especially with a panoramic roof opened or panoramic cover open, plenty of light. The windshield, very big. I could see over the hood, no problem, because it slopes down, no problem at all. I can see the sides very clearly, and the back window is not very small. And the headrest, they don't really cut into visibility either, which is good. So in terms of brakes on Murano, feels pretty good. It catches on a bit early. It doesn't have a lot of movement, so as soon as you push down a little bit, you start feeling it braking right away. Now the suspension is on this firmer side. And I don't know, I think recently I tested a lot of Nissans, and I find Nissans are doing this on purpose, I believe, to give it a more sporty ride. So I do feel like there's a bit more bumpiness in this Murano compared to some of its peers. Now something else I'm picking up is the steering feel, which is, I would say I'm not a fan of. So there's a couple things. First of all, the steering wheel has not been updated. So this is the older type steering wheel. So the newer Nissans have a really cool steering wheel with the Pro Pilot Assist button. So this is an older style. I'm not sure why Nissan didn't update it. Number two is the fact that I feel like it's too thick. Like, I don't know, I've driven a lot of cars where steering wheels is normally not a thing I comment on. It just feels right and it's comfortable to hold, but somehow on this Murano, I feel like the steering wheel is just too thick. It almost, I think Nissan's trying to make you feel like you're driving a sports car, because I've driven M cars before where they have really thick steering wheels and it feels nice in a sports car, but in a normal Murano like this, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. And also, in terms of the steering feel, it's heavy, but I feel like for the sake of just being heavy, it doesn't make me feel like the steering is more precise, more balanced. I still feel like the steering is not that direct. Now, as I'm sitting here at a light, I'm just looking at the overall cabin. It looks good, although it looks a little bit dated compared to some of its peers and even its siblings within the Nissan family, but it still has a nice presence. It's nice and big. There's simulated wood everywhere, and you got a nice large screen that isn't really affected by glare, surprisingly. And the armrest, everything, you know, works really well.
Now, in terms of the trims and pricing, there are 4 separate trims. Each individual one you could select front-wheel drive only or all-wheel drive. And the trims are S, SV, SL, and finally Platinum.
So in terms of the price, this Murano I'm testing, this Platinum Edition that's fully loaded, is coming right under $50,000, around $48,000. And at this price range, it's very, very, very competitive, because now you're starting to compete with the luxury brands, the lower end of the luxury brands, and also, of course, the upper trims of, you know, Honda, Toyota, and others. So it is super, super competitive. And after driving and reviewing this Murano, I would say there are pluses and there are negatives. There are many things to like about this Murano, but there's also some downfalls. So next, I'm going to cover what those are and the good and the bad.
As for the good, the Murano has amazing zero gravity seats. It has a funky yet modern exterior styling. There's a great amount of interior space. It has a good engine and CVT combo. There's plenty of safety features, and lastly, the Murano provides a comfortable ride with great visibility. As for the bad, the Murano has a data cabin, especially when compared to the new Nissan models. There's no Pro Pilot Assist. The steering wheel is too thick. It has a heavy steering feel. And lastly, it's pricey, coming close to $50,000. And lastly, I ranked this Nissan Murano Platinum with a score of 89. If you want to see how this Murano ranks compared to its peers, check out driversonlyrankings.com. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to check out these other videos.